Welcome, underwater drag queens, to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Reviews from the Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And tonight we conclude our look at documentaries about the Walt Disney Company. We've gone through the entire month of April, landing tonight on our final Disney documentary, which is the documentary about Howard Ashman, who was a songwriter for Disney, just simply called Howard. This was released directly to Disney Plus, and unlike a lot of their better docu series that we've watched, this is a single hour-and-a-half long documentary. And it's, what are your takeaways from this one?
Well, most documentaries I watch tend to be about either events or groups of people or companies or whatever. So this was one of the first ones I've ever watched about a single person.
Right.
I thought it was really good and touching, but I found it to be a bit dry compared to say Waking Sleeping Beauty.
Okay. Well, again, I think it's because the events in Waking Sleeping Beauty are that they're an event. It's an era, and there's a lot of different moving pieces there. With Howard, it's more, it is more one person. It is going to be a little more grounded, a little more dry. Yeah. But it's amazing how much he managed to accomplish in 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
Sadly cut very, very short. Yeah. I'll get into that in just a few. But I think my biggest takeaway from this documentary is just he worked on 3 musicals for Disney. He worked on the musical 3 movies. Realistically, 2.5.
Yeah.
But we still talk about him. His legacy is that he kind of ushered in that Broadway style musical that we were getting from The Little Mermaid onward.
Well, as we saw in Waking Sleeping, this one is really kind of a really good companion piece to Waking Sleeping Beauty. Both directed by Don Hahn, anyway, because it's Waking Sleeping Beauty is all about Disney animation was at its lowest point since probably Walt died, and it was really Howard and Alan Menken that revitalized it and made it the powerhouse that it is today.
Yeah.
So, without Howard Ashman, we are probably not still talking about Disney animated movies.
No, exactly, and I feel like it's just interesting because it did take Little Shop of Horrors to get him and Alan Menken on the map, and we see Alan Menken now, and he's still an integral part of the Disney machine. He did the music and songs for Tangled. He did it for what's the last? Do you remember the last thing that Alan Menken did for?
I believe he did Enchanted.
Oh, he definitely did Enchanted. Actually, I'm thinking Enchanted is before Tangled.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Actually, you know what Alan Menken wrote was a place called Slaughter Race from Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Oh. Okay.
So he wrote that. He is still doing his thing. But,
he did Disenchanted. Which
he did Disenchanted. Okay, that makes sense.
He did Howard.
Yeah. Well, technically speaking, because they were playing his music in it anyway.
Yeah, they did specifically get him to do the score for the documentary.
But but getting back to Howard Ashman, though, what's interesting to me is that when you learn about his life and you learn about just what a creative person he was when it wasn't all music. You think, when you think about it, he went in primarily as an actor and a performer and somebody who, his work with the WPA that they talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think his official title was a book writer or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. But it was definitely he engendered a really good creative space for people to work.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as you see that, it really makes a lot of sense going forward in terms of his ability to kind of work with the book of Little Shop, with the failed musical Smile.
Yeah.
That they talked about with Marvin Hamlish.
Yeah, I mean, like, because basically he wanted to go on, he wanted to do Broadway plays, but back then he really didn't have any way to get into Broadway, so he just grabbed a bunch of people that he liked and were very talented and just made their own stuff.
Yeah, and it's really cool that they did that. And then when you get into how Little Mermaid came about and how he really took a lot of the aspects of that story and had to change them to make them kind of fit the music.
Yeah.
And even more so with Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast, when we think about that movie, it's incredibly different. The original concept was incredibly different than what we ended up getting.
Oh yeah. I mean, hell, even I think they don't mention it in the documentary, but even Walt tried to do a crack at Beauty and the Beast back when he was still alive.
Yeah,
and he just could not figure out how to do it.
It's tough.
And then Howard Ashman comes along, and boom, there it is.
Yeah. Excuse me. It is really interesting, especially with the way I love listening to his demos of him singing the songs. The little beats that he gave the performers, the whole thing with Pat Carroll, the whole in it was a Howard Ashman thing that they implemented into Ursula's character, and then seeing like just how much he helped shepherd Jodie Benson's career.
Oh, big time! I mean, Smile.
Yeah.
He gave her a start in a Smile, and that one kind of failed. So he was like, but he knew that she was talented, so he's like,
yeah. He went to bat for her and this is back before they were really, casting big celebrity voices. Yeah. I mean, who's the biggest celebrity voice in The Little Mermaid? It's Buddy Hackett.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Scuttle.
Maybe Renee Auberjonois.
It's tough because he's a character actor who's with a very hard to pronounce name. I mean, you'd recognize him if you saw him but he was a venerable character actor. Yeah. Buddy Hackett was Buddy Hackett. So big difference there.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting about this, and what I felt was really brave about the fact that this is a Walt Disney produced documentary, was that they weren't afraid to touch on the fact that Howard Ashman came up in the 80s. He came up during the AIDS epidemic, when it wasn't being acknowledged, when it was being swept under the rug, in which, we lost a lot of amazing talent from that era because of that.
Yeah. And I mean, hell, even they talk about like when it was first discovered, they were calling it the gay cancer.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the issue, and not something I want to particularly get into here because it was not good how it was handled.
No,
and
not at all.
Not at all. But again, because I remember like, when we watch old movie musicals or we watch old music videos, and you look at the dancers, especially the male dancers in it, and you wonder how many of them are still alive. And Autumn was telling me that she would watch like Tony Awards in the early 90s. And, just like every award show, they had their in memoriam. And they would show and they all started getting younger and younger and younger. Usually you got like these, 90-year-old producers. I produced the great follies of 1805. And then all of a sudden they started getting younger and younger and younger. And it essentially wiped out a generation of talent, Howard Ashman included.
Yeah.
And that his partner at the 91 Oscars said this is the first time an Oscar has been given to a casualty of the AIDS epidemic. And that's very striking and very moving. And it's just, to put my mind back to where, we were in the 80s. it was really tough to kind of, now I'm an adult. Now you know, I can see it, and it's just, it's devastating, and it's really devastating too, because it was, I feel for like Howard Ashman's health went from stable, and then just a deep decline.
Yeah. I mean, hell, he was, they had a phone call in the documentary where he was talking to, I want to say it was Katzenberg. He was saying, for 5 to 6 hours I'm fine, but when it starts getting 8-10 hours, I can't do it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He only had the energy for about 5 hours a day, 5-6 hours a day.
And the sad fact too that he was literally having to lie about his condition because he loses insurance, which is just indication of the bigger problem.
And he didn't want to tell like the Disney executives about his condition because he was afraid that they'd fire him. And that was his dream.
Yeah, the late 80s, it was entirely possible, especially with that management, especially with the Eisner management. I don't doubt that they would have fired him.
Yeah.
Until it got to the point where they acknowledged it, they embraced it. But by that point, he'd already given them the work that they needed. I'm sad. I'm sorry to sound so cynical about this, but I think going back to the documentary, what I like about this is that it didn't make him a martyr.
No.
It really was more of, let's talk about this creative force that Howard Ashman was. And it was nice to, I love these documentaries that actually go outside of their work with Disney.
Yeah.
We got a lot of stuff for Little Shop. Not only that, we got the movie from Little Shop as well in there too.
That was actually one thing that I kind of wanted a little bit more, is that because the big kind of argument that Oz and Ashman had with the studio was they wanted the original ending, and then the studio did like a whole bunch of test screenings. It's like, no, they hate that ending. We've got to give them a happy ending.
Yeah, and he makes it a little bit. And I feel like if this were a documentary about Little Shop,
it would absolutely be there.
It would absolutely be there, and that could actually make a really interesting documentary, because the story behind Little Shop of Horrors is it's really interesting.
Going all the
way
a
few years ago, M from Verbal Diorama did a full episode on it and discussed the difference of the two endings. And I remember the original ending was released as part of the DVD, the first DVD release that they did for it as well. I mean, you can actually watch it now on, I think it's HBO Max that it's on. You can watch the original ending.
And I gotta say, I have seen the movie of Little Shop, not the original Roger Corman one, the Frank Oz one, and I saw. I actually had a front row seat for Little Shop of Horrors down, I think, in the Colonial Theater down in Boston.
Yep.
So I've seen both endings. I'm a happy ending guy.
You know what? I'm a happy ending guy too, mainly because it's. I have done a stage production of Little Shop. They stick with the sad ending there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of dumb how it works. The Corman movie is not a good movie at all. I mean, it's
never seen.
It's completely on brand. That is something that Howard Ashman would have wanted. Here's this really pulpy Roger Corman movie that was made in 3 days with a young Jack Nicholson. I'm fine with that. But the musical is really what lives on with that. It's a great musical.
It's an amazing musical.
Really good musical.
And Ashman was 100% right. You want to go for the 50s doo-wop.
Right. And I feel, the funny thing is too, is that I feel like it's a better 50s musical than Grease is.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like Hairspray took a lot of inspiration from, and I'm talking the musical of Hairspray. Correlation here, but I'll bring that up in a second. But Hairspray, the musical, took a lot from the musical tone of Little Shop. Good Morning Baltimore is very similar to Skid Row.
I've never actually seen the musical of Hairspray. So
it's not as bad as I was expecting.
Okay.
Funny story though, if you see it done performed live now, the Tracy Turnbull ads are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. But it's interesting though because John Waters directed the original Hairspray, the original non-musical Hairspray. His muse was Divine, who is the inspiration for Ursula.
Yep.
And yeah, I remember when we were staying at Art of Animation in at Disney World, and we would wake up every morning, and I'm just like, okay, well, waking up and saying hello to the drag queen every time I leave this place, because we had that gigantic Ursula in front of our room.
I did love how, like, you know, they had like all the different versions. Most of them were like kind of skinny and almost like,
oh yeah,
what Joan Crawford? No, was it Joan Crawford or Joan?
It was very much like a Joan Crawford, Betty Davis style of, you know.
Yeah, and then they had that one in there that, you know, inspired by Divine. And when Ashman came in, he was like, "Oh, I like that one."
Yeah, and he had a lot to work with, and that's the thing too. Again, it comes to that creative force that it wasn't just he's just not the songwriter,
right?
And you can really feel that in the songs that he wrote for Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. Aladdin's a weird one. I know he did some of. He didn't write A Whole New World. That was Tim Rice who wrote the lyrics for that one. And what's funny too about A Whole New World is that A Whole New World really feels like more of it, like what we call like a trunk musical song. Maybe it was written outside of this and then it was inserted in because it fit. Versus, thinking to their what they won Oscars for. Under the Sea. They won an Oscar for Under the Sea. It fits well within that.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast is the same thing. It fits well within that. And A Whole New World definitely doesn't sound like that. I'm actually trying to remember, what are the songs that Ashman wrote for Aladdin?
Well, Prince Ali and Friend Like Me, I know that.
Okay. And Friend Like Me is great. It works really well. He worked a lot of that franticness into it as well. And it's, again, it's hard for me to think about that. And the documentary definitely opens up, you know, the what could have beens.
I mean, one thing it'll always be kind of like my white whale about Aladdin, which, you know, I love. The animated one is one of my all-time favorite Disney ones, and I even freaking love the live action one.
Yep.
What my biggest dream for the live action one though was that he would have somehow fit Proud of Your Boy in there.
Yeah.
I love Proud of Your Boy, and it's just they just forced it on the Broadway one and nowhere else.
Right, exactly. It tonally, but that's the thing though. I think tonally it doesn't work within like the edit of the movie or the live action. But yeah, but you know, and that's another thing too, is that the legacy of Howard Ashman lives on. I mean, you think about, you know, you see, I mean, Little Shop, it just got a revival not too long ago. You know, Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin are constantly touring.
Yeah.
So we see that a lot. The Little Mermaid musical, not so much. But
no, but we are getting a live action. Good.
What's that?
We are getting a live action.
I didn't even think about that. We're gonna be able to get some of this music again. You know what really kind of drove me nuts? I'm trying to remember if now, you know, like I'm just fog right now. If they actually admitted to the fact that Part of Your World, Where That Screen are essentially the same song.
Well, I mean, yeah, they do mention in the documentary that Ashman said they were both like their I Want songs. You know,
they are song, but if you listen to them, especially that last piece of the song, Far From Skid Row, Where I'll Go, Part of Your World.
That's not bad.
Yeah. No. And I do that every time. And also, you know, yeah. and it just stops me from what I used to do whenever I'd watch that, and like Ariel would pull herself up on the rock. I go, hump.
Yeah. There you go.
So
that's green.
Yeah. But it's an interesting look at it. And again, I it's nice too that this type of inspiration that he had really brought in an amazing group of songwriters. I mean, Pixar will always have Randy Newman as their songwriter.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. Well, you take the good, you take the bad. But,
take both of them got.
Yeah. But think about some of the songwriters that Disney has had with their musicals since. Not really counting Phil Collins in here. I don't care so much for those songs.
Well, I mean, even today, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
That's true. Lin-Manuel is doing songs for Disney now, and they're very much Ashman inspired. The Lopez are doing songs that
the songs tell a part of the story.
Yeah, and it's great that they do this too. By the way, Alan Menken also wrote the music to Hercules.
Oh yeah.
Which is interesting when they tried to bring another Broadway guy in. They had Stephen Schwartz do Pocahontas.
Oh, wait. And you forget he also did Home on the Range.
I'm fairly certain that was an omission that nobody will complain about. Yeah.
You know there's a Disney diehard. You didn't mention Home on the Range.
I didn't mention a bunch. But I mean, overall, I really enjoyed this documentary. I thought it was very sweet. I feel like for a company like Disney, who really now is kind of embracing as that they're going to be as inclusive as they can. I feel like this was perfect. It's a really good documentary. Again, probably not my favorite of the month of documentaries we've done. Again, that honor is going to go to Waking Sleeping Beauty, just because I just can't believe that they almost sunk the whole thing.
Yeah, I would agree. Waking Sleeping Beauty is just a masterpiece.
But I really enjoyed this, and it's just I think it's important for a number of reasons. If you're a fan of Disney history, it's good for that. If you love musicals. But also just get a better understanding of how the AIDS epidemic robbed us of so many creative souls. Yeah. So, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say about Howard before we move on to what our topic is for next month?
I mean, it's like I would say the first maybe half of it is pretty dry, because when it's just like people talking over still photos.
Yeah.
I want there's a little bit more emotion. Once they start getting into the Little Mermaid, I mean not Little Shop of Horrors and onward. Yeah, that's where it really captured me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just when it starts talking about stuff that I can appreciate. The creative aspect of it, learning, finding your way through theater and all that. Big fan of that. So I really enjoyed that. But all in all, I really like this. I really like this one a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was our Disney month. We did 5 documentaries, Mike. And I think we need a bit of a break from Disney, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to keep our eyes on the prize here. Mike, do you want to tell the good folks watching at home what next month's theme is?
Well, next week is our animation month.
Yep. So
took me all day to come up with that pun.
I am so glad you did too. I'm glad work was busy enough that it could still instill, the creative spark in your mind. One little spark
of inspiration.
So, so next month we are going to be talking about non-Disney animated films. I think we've got our 4 picked already, maybe. Kinda.
I think we're settled on like 3.
Yeah, we are settled on 3 right now, maybe 4 that I brought up earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, I just didn't look to see if we've already covered it or not.
Yeah, I don't think we did. I'm almost 100% positive we haven't. I'll double check, but if not, we'll have something else in our back pocket. Maybe it's sequel. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to be talking about animation in the month of May. We haven't quite decided which one we're going to do yet, so I think we'll leave that to be a surprise. So we'll let you know. But I am curious, though, if you have actually seen the documentary of Howard. And if not, what is your favorite Howard Ashman penned song? It can be from any of the musicals that he's done. I'd love to know. You can leave a polite comment below. Don't forget also to hit the subscribe button. Give us that big thumbs up because that really helps us. Also, Mike and I host a little podcast called Geek Salad. You can check that out wherever you get your podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. We are there. If you're on iTunes, please, for the love of God, give us that 5-star rating. I don't care if you listen to us. Just give us that 5-star rating. It's all that matters in this world. We just released a new episode the other day where we go over the songs of the Sherman Brothers. Earlier this week, we had done our look at The Boys documentary of the Sherman Brothers, but the podcast, we just talk about the songs.
Right.
So, yeah, really interesting. I actually just finished listening to it today because my queue is a mile long right now. But I got to it. Yes, I know. Why do I need to listen to it? I lived it, man. So we got that. You can also follow us on the socials. We're on Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast and on Twitter at Geek Salad Radio. And if you're a fan of what we do, check us out every week because we drop new movie reviews every week, podcast every 3 weeks to a month. With my rehearsal schedule right now, it might be a little longer, but it happens, right?
We should have an episode next Friday?
Thursday or Friday, I think. Yeah. It would have to be Thursday. So, yep. Hopefully we'll get that up. Hopefully we can get that going. So, if not, there will be a profound apology underneath it. But for reasons, I'm insanely busy right now. So, anyway, that's all I got. Mike, you got anything?
Nope.
All right then. Well, folks, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth and be nerdful. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.